In the winter of 2004, when the North Atlantic sun hovered like a tarnished coin above a cracked mirror of slate-grey water, the research trawler Auden's Lantern prowled the forlorn margins west of Jacobshire. Her steel plates moaned beneath Atlantic breath, and her crew equal parts cartographer, scavenger, and confessor moved with the weary choreography of men who trusted the sea only because they feared the land more. On the 12th dawn a cry lanced the fog, a lifeboat, ghost pale, riding the bruised swells like a splinter of memory. The ocean, reluctant to surrender its secrets, parted just long enough for them to glimpse the skeletal craft, ribs bare to the cold, gunwales feathered with hoarfrost as delicate as cathedral lace. They circled it, engines throttled low, as though approaching a slumbering beast. From the wheelhouse Captain Harrow peered through binoculars and felt history stir beneath his ribs. When grappling iron snagged the hull, a sound like the cough of a long-dead violin shivered across the deck. The name carved into the bow letters, gnawed by brine, yet stubbornly legible, was a spectre, RMS Titanic. No orders were shouted. Awe suffocated every syllable. They winched the relic aboard with the care one might grant a cradle of saints' bones. Salt dripped from its seams like stale tears, and the men tasted 1912 on their tongues. Amid splintered thwarts lay an oilcloth bundle. Above it, powdery frost clung like ash, and every man felt the weight of a century collapse upon his lungs utterly.
They unwrapped the oilcloths with the trembling caution of those defiling a tomb. Inside, the first object was a woolen-coated Wardian incut, the fabric mottled and stiff with salt, yet somehow intact. A small brooch was pinned to the lapel, a silver lamb, no larger than a thumb, eyes inlaid with jet. No name! No initials! Only that silent lamb staring into the void. The second item was far stranger, a leather-bound Bible, its gold leaf edging still glinting beneath the pall of frost. Not a single page was wet, not a word smeared, no mildew, no rot. It was pristine, like it had been placed there yesterday. A bookmarked frayed crimson ribbon was stuck between Psalms and lament. The crew stared at it, unwilling to touch. Then Harrow, with hands that had once buried his own son, reached it. The inside cover bore a name written in precise, looping hand. Elias Harrow, 1912. The captain froze. His breath coiled visibly in the frigid air. No one spoke. They all knew his grandfather had vanished aboard Titanic, one of the unclaimed, unconfirmed dead. The family spoke little of it, a vague shame, wrapped in myth. Elias had been a steward, not a hero, not a name carved into brass, just another man swallowed by the cold. But the moment Harrow saw that name, his blood, that impossible relic, untouched by time or sea, reality shifted. A silence bloomed around them, the kind that hangs in churches before the dead speak. They searched the lifeboat again and found the third item. Beneath the seat, wedged between cracked boards, was a journal, oilskin wrapped, its spine broken, but the pages legible, written in the same hand. The first entry read, April 15th, 1912. There were 6 of us at first. Each word unfurled like a nail driven into the coffin of sanity. The journal was not merely a log. It was a confession, a map of descent, a hymn sung backwards through the halls of death. And as they read it aloud that night beneath low-hanging lamps that swung like nooses in the dark, the crew of the Auden's Lantern came to understand that some lifeboats do not carry survivors. Some carry stories too heavy to drown.
April 15th, 1912. There were 6 of us at first. Myself, Miss Abernathy, the priest, the boy, the man in the naval coat, and the woman who would not speak. The journal's voice was composed, almost serene, as if Elias Harrow had written it from within a trance doomed to fear, too conscious to die. The entries were short at first, sparse in detail, but thick with a sense of mounting dread. The lifeboat, it seemed, had drifted far from the others, caught in a strange eddy. The stars above them were wrong, he wrote. For days, they floated, with no rescue, no ships, no goals. The sea was too still. No current, no wind. And the silence had weight. Miss Abernathy sang hymns at first. Soft ones, for the boy. But by the third night, She began to sing with her eyes open, lips bleeding from the salt. She sang when no one asked. She sang when the priest begged her to stop. As Harrow read this aloud in the galley of the modern trawler, his crew sat frozen. The storm outside had gathered in earnest, slapping the hull with fists of sleet, but none of them rose to check the instruments. The story held them. The priest spoke to someone who wasn't there. He would whisper into the sea, make the sign of the cross over the water, and mutter Latin no one remembered teaching him. On the 5th day, the boy was gone. No one saw him leave. The sea was still as glass. No splash. Just gone. At this point in the journal, the handwriting changed tighter, jagged, as if penned with trembling hands. Elias began referring to the others, not by name, but by symbol. The lamb, the ashen woman, the false sailor. He described a darkness at the edge of their vision, something that would not approach unless spoken of aloud. And he warned, never speak the names, never speak of what was promised to us when the stars began to sink. The strangest entry came a few pages later. On the 9th day, I awoke to find the woman's Bible untouched by dew. I touched it, and for a moment, the sky tore like paper. I saw the ship not sinking, but reversed, its great hull ascending from the sea, pulled by unseen chains. No screams, only breathless silence, and eyes looking upward from beneath the water. The crew of the Orden's lantern grew pale. One man began quietly reciting the Lord's Prayer. Another wept without sound. Harrow himself read on, his voice low, as if afraid of being overheard by something just beyond the hull. Because Elias's final entry dated what should have been April 23, 1912. Unbroken line. The sea does not forget, and neither do we, the ones who were meant to remain. And below that, not in ink, but something darker, perhaps blood, perhaps something older was scrawled. Tell them nothing, let the boat float, it will find its way home. When the journal ended, no one spoke. The storm outside clawed at the portholes like a thing denied entry. And for the first time in their long years at sea, the men aboard the Orden's lantern felt not alone but watched. Captain Harrow closed the book with fingers gone numb, and stared at the Bible that still lay upon the table, untouched by time, dry in a place where even breath turned to frost. The lamb-shaped brooch now seemed less like jewelry, and more like a token and emblem of covenant. As still they debated returning it to the water, of letting the lifeboat drift once more into myth, but none dared touch it again. The coat was placed in a sealed case, the journal locked in the captain's quarters, but the Bible they left it out, like a holy thing too sacred or too cursed to be shut away. Strange things began to happen then. The ship's compasses spun without cause. The satellite radio hissed, static broken by fragments of music, old music waltzes from another century. One night, the youngest crew member, Jameson, woke screaming that he'd heard a voice humming from the lifeboat nearer. My God, to thee. 3 days later, he jumped overboard without warning. They never found the body. Only his boots remained, neatly placed at the bow, toes pointing toward the sea. Harrow began reading the journal again, in secret. He marked passages, tried to cross-reference names, ship logs, newspaper clippings, but what he found only deepened the madness. There was no Miss Abernathy on Titanic's manifest. No priest matching that description. No child by that name. And worst of all, there was no record of his grandfather, Elias Harrow, working aboard the ship at all. No pay stub, no cabin assignment, no mention, as if the man had never existed. And yet, the handwriting in the journal matched the signature in the old family Bible back home in Yorkshire, a Bible Captain Harrow had held in his hands as a boy, with the same red ribbon, same careful loops of ink. Impossible, but true. By week's end, the Orden's lantern changed course, abandoning their survey mission. The men refused to speak of what they had found. Before docking in Reykjavik, they set the lifeboat adrift, once more gently, reverently. They placed the coat back inside. The journal too, but the Bible remained. Harrow could not let it go. Years passed, the world forgot. The report was buried, rewritten, classified. Captain Harrow resigned from the sea. He took the Bible with him. It was last seen in a parish library in Cornwall, then vanished entirely. But sometimes, along the ice-rimmed edges of Greenland's waters, a lifeboat is seen drifting in the distance. Always alone, never capsized. No birds ever perch upon it. Sailors speak of it in hushed tones. They say, if you see it, don't approach. Don't look too long, let it pass. And if by some terrible fate, you find it within reach, don't read the Bible, don't open the journal, don't speak the names. Because some stories are not meant to be understood. Some passengers were never meant to be saved. And the sea, like time, does not forgive, it only waits.